Good evening. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson.
I'm meteorologist AJ Rickman.
And we're here again to keep you informed about the first alert day that's ongoing here around eastern Iowa. Very, very cold weather. And there's a lot going on around the country too this weekend. Big storm system that could bring parts of the area a little bit of snow.
Absolutely. And as brutal as our weather has been for the last 24 hours or so, in some ways we kind of are getting the easy side of things because there are parts of the country that are going to be dealing with crippling ice, heavy snow, in even areas of the country that really aren't used to it, like southern states. So yes, it's brutally cold here, but it could be worse.
For sure. Yeah, let's dive into it though.
Yes, so we are watching for our ongoing first alert day, and that is through Saturday morning. So that's going to be as we continue to watch for dangerously cold wind chills. Bitterly cold, wind chills 15 to 30 below. In those conditions, if you are not properly dressed, frostbite can set in as little as 30 minutes. There's also a cold weather advisory in effect through noon on Saturday for all of the TV9 viewing area for, again, those brutally cold conditions. Not quite as cold as we were last night, but still dangerously cold. You really do want to take it seriously. Make sure that you're being safe and bundling up.
Yeah, and remember last night we were talking about an extreme cold warning, those darker blue colors instead of this lighter blue. So the National Weather Service kind of tracking along with our forecast too with that change in advisory.
Absolutely, yep. So again, the worst at this point is behind us, still something to really take seriously. And right now we are seeing those temperatures, having failed to reach zero in many places today, are now beginning their downhill slide. This is not wind chill. This is your actual air temperature. We're ranging from 2 below in Oskaloosa, and typically they're your warm spot. I wouldn't call 2 below warm. They're better than Decorah though. They're 13 below, as is Charles City and Fayette. So now let's factor in the wind. Wind chills, still 20s below zero across the place, except Decorah. Their calm winds are giving them the wind chill that's the same as the temperature. But most places have just enough of a breeze to keep those wind chills well below zero. We're going to see that continue as we go through the rest of our evening. By the time we get to early tomorrow morning, still seeing those wind chill values in the teens and 20s below zero. That continues as we get into tomorrow afternoon. And then by the time we get to tomorrow night into early Sunday, still failing to reach zero in many places for your wind chill values. So again, take it seriously through the night, through the day tomorrow, really through the entirety of the weekend, even once that cold weather advisory expires. Still going to be cold enough out there to cause frostbite if you're not properly dressed for it. So make sure that you're taking it safe and doing what you can to be ready for it. Good reminder, wind chill safety, stay dry. When you get wet out there, whether it's from sweating or spilling a drink on you if you're outside or whatever it might be, when you get wet, water wicks moisture or heat away from the body so much faster than dry air. So make sure you're staying dry. Cover any exposed skin that you have, face, hands. Especially ones that could be a little problematic there. Make sure your ears are covered and wear non-skin tight clothing. It's a little more comfortable in general for movement, but also non-skin tight clothing can trap a little more air around you, lets your body heat warm that air up, and it makes it a little more difficult for the wind to strip that layer of warm air away that would ordinarily, or that layer of warm air that keeps you a little more comfortable when the temperatures get really cold. Best thing, of course, spend less time outside. Frostbite can occur again in as little as 30 minutes. So again, you're really going to want to make sure that you're taking this seriously and continuing to stay safe for the next couple of days.
Yeah, the good news is that there is hope. Things will get better. And while we're talking about like an incremental change, right? We're still below zero wind chills, even when you took us all the way to Sunday afternoon. But it's something. And it's not 40 to 50 below or close to it this morning. We didn't quite get to 50 below anywhere in eastern Iowa. Pretty close though in parts of the north.
Oh yeah, and at this point, I don't know about you, I will happily take 20 below over 50 below. Yes, it's still going to be cold, still going to be not a great time to be outside, but like you said, at this point, incremental changes, you got to take what you can get.
Yeah, and the stiff breeze that we had the last, let's say, 12 to 24 hours is going to be a lot less tomorrow. It looks like the wind speeds will be lower, and that holds into Sunday too, and that's why those wind chills are generally lower too. That's a big factor.
Absolutely, yep. Be a big factor in making it a little more comfortable, and like you said, just a nicer time to be outside.
Yeah, for sure. But the wind will inch upward just a little bit as we get towards Sunday. And this is all because there's this giant storm system that's moving through the country. You may have heard about it. We've talked about it a couple times here too. It's moving and it's going to affect kind of close to back where you're from. You're from Georgia, and so they're facing some mess, right?
They are, yeah. So originally I'm from Atlanta, and Atlanta is kind of right there on the edge of it, which growing up was the case for a lot of our winter storms, right there on that transition line between rain, ice, and snow. Of course, as a kid, you love snow, so I always wanted to get the winter weather down there. I know a lot of adults down there don't necessarily want that cold and snow, and what they're looking at is an ice storm. So they're looking at a specific setup with this storm as it comes through. Their big thing they're going to have to watch for is freezing rain. A lot of other areas too, looking at freezing rain potential, and then heavy snow for areas north of that freezing rain line. Such a wide range of impacts covering such a large area too.
Yeah, and it's easy to tell just by looking at, again, where the National Weather Service has their alerts placed. That's a winter storm warning going from southwest Texas, right up against the U.S.-Mexico border, all the way up into New England, and a winter storm watch carrying past that. The only reason that's not a warning yet in Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont, or at least the rest of those states, is because it's just still far enough away. That will be eventually.
And I cannot get over looking at that map, the wide expanse of those watches and warnings just kind of gives a testament to how large of an area that this storm system is going to be covering over the next several days.
Yeah, biggest from some measurements from Iowa State University, our good friend Daryl Hertzman, who kind of runs the Iowa Environmental Mesonet, which is a great resource for meteorologists, he calculated that, yeah, this is the biggest winter storm warning, at least contiguous, across the country, that at least in the last 17 years. Records before that, a little bit more dicier in terms of when and where. But certainly, yeah, a lot. In the purple in the south, that's ice storm warning territory down toward Atlanta, like you said, as well as portions of Arkansas and Mississippi. And it's those areas, I'm going to pause it here. You can see there's an area of purple on this winter storm severity index in northern Mississippi. That's for the likelihood of very heavy ice accumulation, which is probably going to do a lot of damage, a lot of power outages, a lot of tree damage. And that's the kind of thing they're facing down toward northern Georgia, South Carolina too, as cold air kind of wraps around the Appalachians and down into that portion of the country.
Yep, cold air damming is one of the things that I was always fascinated by, especially as I got a little bit older in high school. But like you said, it's that cold air damming that kind of, again, that cold air, like you said, wraps around the Appalachians. It ends up pushing further south into those areas like Atlanta. And kind of the graphic there just shows it all for the impacts that are going to be seen, of course. For those spots, the farther north you go and the farther up the Appalachians, the greater the impacts. It's always, when you get storms like this, it amazes me seeing that extreme coloration, seeing it in the south, the deep south
Yeah,
like that. That's
totally.
just a big mismatch in my mind. You just wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, for sure. So it seems like folks are down there, at least they're certainly preparing, and hopefully things work out for the best, or at least as good as they can. Here in eastern Iowa, we're on the opposite end of the spectrum. Limited impact, and only in a limited portion of the TV9 viewing area, as the precipitation with this storm, it generally misses us. Part of the reason why, we've got a big area of high pressure that's located pretty much right on top of us, and this is going to help to keep some of the effect of this storm system farther south. And as it moves off to the east, really haven't seen a big change in the expected track or impacts from the system in the last day or so of new data coming into the weather lab here. So that's helped us to be a little more confident, same on other parts of the country too, on exactly what's going to happen here.
Absolutely, yeah. It's nice to your point, when you get those new sets of model data that come in, there's not a lot of change, not a lot of fluctuation. Makes you a little less nervous leading up to the onset of the event in terms of where it's going to track. And so far as the system has been gearing up, seems to track, again, pretty well with what models have been projecting. Currently seeing a lot of ice and snow moving into the Panhandle region of Texas and Oklahoma, snow moving across Kansas currently as well. So it's going to be fascinating to watch this system unfold. Of course, hoping that everyone impacted by it, by especially the heavy ice and snow, makes it through okay.
Yeah.
But again, from a meteorological standpoint, this is going to be an interesting one to watch over the next couple of days.
Indeed. You can see here at Saturday afternoon and evening, some of that snow starting to move into southern Iowa. Again, that high pressure working against this storm system, and also the dry air that we have in place. There's just not a ton of moisture in the air when it's this cold. And so to get snow out of it in the first place is pretty impressive, and it also will just have trouble taking place at all. But it does come close enough as this moves through that we are expecting the possibility, and you see it continues up the East Coast as we head toward later Sunday. So this really is a multi-day affair going across the entire southern U.S. So the blues here represent snowfall. The pinks, potential ice accumulation, those darker pinks and purples stretching from especially northern Louisiana through Arkansas into Mississippi. And then again, you see sort of curling around the southern edge of the mountains there. over toward Georgia and South Carolina. That's why they've got those ice storm warnings. Areas to the north, not as much, and that does include, again, far southern Iowa. Very little in terms of the eastern Iowa impacted potentially, which is good news for your weekend plans. In fact, our forecast only calls for trace to 2 inches of snow for that same area. It does look like at this point, for most of that area even, it would be toward the lower end of that. You have to go down toward Mount Pleasant, Fairfield, Tumwa to get closer to the higher side of that range, which again is good for the weekend.
Absolutely, yeah. If you do have any plans on Saturday, especially if you live in the southern half of the viewing area or if you're traveling south of Interstate 80, check the radar before you get out on the roads during the morning and afternoon. Keep an eye on road conditions as well. But to your point, at this point, it is looking like we are going to be on the lower end of impacts with this storm, which is also a fortunate thing because of the cold air that's going to be sticking around for such a long time. If we did get heavy snow from it, it certainly wouldn't be going anywhere and we'd be dealing with certainly, I'll put it this way. There would be no help from the sun and no help from the thermometer with getting the snow out of the way.
Yeah, that's the truth. So we've only got another, let's say, 18 hours to go with this first alert day. Then things do get a little bit better. Better doesn't mean good, doesn't mean warm.
Right.
So you still do need to bundle up throughout the weekend, even into early next week. It still could be dealing with maybe some late starts on Monday for schools because temperatures on Monday morning will actually dip a little bit again. And so it's going to get a little bit colder before it gets better. Late next week, we are expecting things to get warmer.
Yes, and again, the key word there is warmer. We're still, at this point, not looking at any highs above freezing on the 9-day. We get a little closer towards the start of February, around 28, so about where we should be at this time of year. But you're right, the next several days is going to be cold. Of course, once that first alert day expires, still going to be very uncomfortable, still going to want to make sure you're bundling up out there.
Yeah, for sure. We'll take what we can get. So thanks for joining us here with this update again tonight. We'll be keeping a close eye on it through the weekend as well. We've got meteorologist Joe Winters and AJ, of course, in his normal spot as we go through the weekend. So we'll have all the latest as things continue to develop. Hope you do have a good and safe weekend as well.